Xtreme scoring to do the work for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SBO Network's American Muscle Series, brought to you by Slow Motion Broadcasting here at Imola. I am Alexander Andersen. I am joined in the booth by Tom Dillon, with Adam Thompson running cameras in the background, and a bit of information about this track. Imola, officially known as the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari, will forever be tainted by the tragedies of 1994, which prompted major revisions to its layout. But despite this, it remains one of the most atmospheric and challenging circuits in Europe. Fast, flowing, and with a fair amount of gradient to boot, Imola grew from a course laid out on public roads before being transformed into one of Europe's classic courses, providing a proper test of driver and machine. Its origins and location, literally in a city center, mean that there was often little room for error. Restored once again to the Formula One calendar, the circuit hosts a wide range of racing throughout the year, as well as pop concerts, cycling events, and promotional activities. There's also a guided tour which can be booked to take you around the key points of the lap, including the Senna Memorial. And with that, we are here for what I believe is round 2 of the SBO Network's American Muscle Series here from Imola, with a lot more differing storylines going into this race as we see some cars hitting the track for qualifying. Currently, we're looking at the Challenger driver, Jason Gata, in the 110 car, but there's multiple different storylines coming into today's race, which a big one is, compared to Sandown last week, the track temp today is a lot warmer than last week, which going to really affect these cars' tires and grip, especially with these very heavy Ford Mustangs. So with that, enter Tom Dillon, as well as a few other storylines if you would like to go over any yourself, or maybe make a comment about how the warmer track temp could affect today's race.
Well, of course, it's a much warmer as we right in the midst of summer in Europe, and particularly in Italy it can be quite warm. Of course, we're towards San Marino sort of area of Italy, which is really one of the hottest areas to my knowledge, at least, which means that the drivers are going to have such trouble, not trouble keeping the tyres in a reasonable temperature. They certainly won't be getting cold, we'll say that, but with the high track temp it should mean that the drivers are going to have to be just that little bit more careful on their tyres. The cars might slide around a little bit more, and that, we know in iRacing, can be a little bit difficult. And, extreme tyre temperatures were a point of controversy in the Spa 24 Hours a couple of weeks ago. I don't think there'll be any shenanigans quite like that this evening. But that just shows how much of a point to note it is on this game.
Yeah, really, as we are currently looking at Matt Thompson here in the 133 car, another Challenger driver, and now Chuck Lebano in the amateur 202 car. And another storyline, speaking of separate drivers, is Aeronami wasn't here last week, but he is back today, and he did set the fastest lap in practice, about 2/10 faster than the rest of the field, with a 1:59.904. The only driver, I believe, to break into the 1:59. So just goes to show how fast he is and how it's going to take a lot for these guys to beat him here today.
Absolutely, yes. We've actually got Randall McGrew in here, the series owner, for his weekly interview. And Randall, after a successful week of racing last time out, you must be hoping for not just more of the same, but just, well, I suppose more of the same, just that to continue. It was so good.
Yeah, we're looking forward to an exciting race and hoping that it's a much cleaner start this time around. But we'll see. Who knows?
And, as we go into Imola, it's a very different style of track to last week, and surely there's got to be a thing that we're going to start to see who's going to be fighting for that title. It's such a different characteristic of track. If the same people can be just as fast, then you'd have to mark them as contenders.
Yeah, I really try to throw a good variety of tracks at this league to see who's got what it takes across all different types of circuit. So It is, like you said, very different track, very not tight constraints here, and we'll see who can keep it on the island, as it were.
And any predictions for the race? Obviously, we have got Aero Nom, who is back in the league. Do you think he might be getting his season off to a start and making up for lost ground already?
He looks fast, that's for sure. But I know a lot of the guys are very hungry to try to beat him. He's always kind of the high water mark in this league. So a lot of guys really gun for him and try to beat him on track.
And so, finally, just any real thoughts or things you wanted to bring up on the broadcast ahead of this race?
So this is Eero's first race this season, obviously. He's not had to deal with the pit strategy on these 40-minute races. So that might be where he gets caught out and somebody jumps him. Also, the track limits here were much complained about in the drivers' meeting. So expect to see some guys using the track limits to their advantage strategically, spending it like currency.
Hey, Eero, it's Adam Thompson here. Sorry to cut you off there, Tom. Just want to bring in real quick, again, on the screen right now, we have a Simpit logo of what looks to be, well, not what looks to be, last season's winner of Roy Baker and Eero Nom. Simpit, high-quality 3D printed trophies for this series have been kindly provided by the Simpit. The Simpit is a website, a video show, and a community built for sim racers to find and inform and to find information about our hobby. The ultimate purpose of the Simpit is to make sim racers faster and more informed. Search the Simpit on YouTube or check out their website, https:// thesimpit.com. But anyways, Randall, I wanted to kind of get your takes and about the Simpit. I know they're your sponsors this season, but man, those trophies do look pretty darn good, man.
Those trophies are awesome. I was completely floored when I saw them. I've seen some of Sean's trophies before. They've always been good. That's why I asked him to do them, and he agreed to. And he really stepped it up for last season's trophies. So I couldn't be happier with them. And it's a great community that they have over there. I know Sean runs the Simpit show. I don't remember if it's weekly or bi-weekly at this point on Fridays over on YouTube. But he goes through a lot of the sim racing news and stuff like that. And there's a lot of good reviews on that channel as well. So if you're looking at gear or looking to see what's happening in the sim world, go check out the Simpit.
All right. So anyways, back to racing, guys. I'll let you have Randall back, but I know he's got some race controlling to go do.
I know, you've stolen me off of you've stolen him off of me there, Adam. I'll take it back now. But final question I had for you, Randall. Are we expecting more of the same in terms of pit stop strategy this week, or is the extreme track temperatures they sort of going to force either an extra pit stop, or do you think it should be more of the same?
I think you'll be seeing some guys take 2 tires possibly, but the pit strategy should be about the same.
All right, well, I'll let you get off to do your race controlling. Thank you very much for joining us, and go well again this evening.
Thanks, guys.
And so I know you've been troubleshooting a couple of things, Alex, and I trust you're back in now, or do you want me to...
I have figured that out, yeah. So, back to qualifying real quick. Just like we were mentioning earlier about how fast he was, Aero Nom already top of the charts here. Watching him going through I believe that's the Tamburello chicane. Looks like he's going to come to a stop. But currently fastest by over 0.4 of a second with a 2 minute flat. 2 minutes and 9 thousandths of a second here as we take a look at Wayne Castile here. Currently third on the board, just looks like 5.5 tenths behind Aero Nom, about 1 tenth behind Matt Malone here in second. We're gonna watch him as actually he goes second fastest, now 2 tenths behind Aero Nom there with the 2 minute 2:35, which bumps him up to second. And I gotta ask, I mean, do we think that anybody, we know how fast he is, and it's a major storyline in every AMS race, do we think that anybody in the field could be fast enough to beat Aero Nom here tonight?
Well, assuming that race pace is much the same as qualifying pace in terms of just scaling wise, theoretically, he should be under a little bit of pressure from Wayne Castile in this race. And Wayne, I'm sure, will be looking to just keep the season going in a positive direction, keeping pumping in the top 5 finishes, and hoping that the fact that Nom wasn't here in that first race can help him out a little bit as we head later on into the season. The checker flag is out here for qualifying at Imola in round 2 of this AMS season. And here is the grid, Alex.
Nom once again takes pole with a 2-minute and 9,000 second lap. Wayne Castile just over 2/10 of a second behind him in second. Matt Malone ends up P3. Scotty Banks in fourth. Luis Henriquez in fifth. Joseph Stout, the first challenger driver, in sixth. Brian Howard in seventh. Jay Bass in eighth. Edgar Sanchinelli, the first amateur series driver, sorry about that, the first amateur driver there, in ninth. Mike Thompson in 10th. Clint Fletcher in 11th. That looks like Jesse Hodson in 12th. Michael Puchik, I believe that is in 13th. Dustin Allis, 14th. David Clymer, 15th. David Stevenson in 16th. Chuck Lebano in 17th. Chris Schultes, I believe that is, in 18th. Roy Baker in 19th. Jason Gata in 20th. Matthew Guzenda in 21st. David Blair, 22nd. Matthew Thompson, 23rd. Looks like Mike Nipham we have in 24th. And then it's Jay Little in 25th. Martin Bork, I believe that is, in 26th. I might have messed that up a little bit. Roger Clark in 27th. Mike Taylor in 28th. Kenny Meadows in 29th. Stefan Price in 30th. Brandon Carl, one of our sponsors, BCXCarl, there in 31st. Scott Brooks in 32nd. Brian Nagy, I believe that is, in 33rd. Tom Went in 34th. Eric Hardiman in 35th. Random LaGrew. Oh, never mind. That's the, I called out our boy on race control up there on accident thinking he was racing. So that rounds out your field of 35 cars here tonight. These guys, they're going to enter Avanza, then they're going to get going. Tom, you got a little bit of pre-race predictions before we get rolling here?
Well, it should be pretty incredible. 30 angry muscle cars heading down into the Tamburello chicane. It's going to be absolutely insane. I think we're all expecting that. It really is going to be a race that I think could be won or lost into turn 1 here. If Wayne Castile can get ahead of Nom, then there should be an opportunity for him to hold it off. We know it should be an absolute slipstream fest. There's no DRS in these cars, of course, but there might as well be with how much slipstream there should be. As we've got a few Constantina here, but I'll let you take away for the race start.
Hold on, I think there might have been a bit of contact between some drivers in the outside row there, rolling off the grid. It looks like, if you can tell by some of the cars back there, they have a bit of damage on their front and rear ends, but we'll pay a bit of attention towards that later as we take a look. Here, there's a bit of a replay here. Mike Thompson, you can see him, oh, there he goes off track into Ravazza, maybe overcooked it just on the entry, but back up towards the front of the field. We're green racing here for Imola, it looks like, as they just come down to Variante Bassa, and they're going to race down to the Tamburello chicane here. Aero Nom leads, Wayne Castile leads Matt Malone, and here they come down into turn number 1. Everybody easily onto the brakes. No big moves into turn number 1. Everybody gets single file. Ooh, a bit wide. There's 5th Luis Henriquez, I believe that was. Side by side here for, it looks like, 8th between Jay Bass, I think that is, and as well as Edgar Sanchinelli here as we take a look at Brian Howard here. Running up in 7th so far. Looks like Jay Bass in the 153 is going to dive to his inside here in the Villeneuve chicane. Ooh, off track there. Ooh, overcorrect. He's still trying to save it. That was Jay Bass there in the 153 car as he heads up into Ravazza here. Or, excuse me, not Ravazza. I believe that's Pola, I want to say. Not quite sure there, but everybody continues on nice and well. But really unfortunate for Jay Bass early in this race as they head into Piratella.
Malone was really early on the brakes heading into turn 1, and Tamburello, he was just trying to make sure that he was out of trouble and out of the way, so not really making any moves on Castile early on in this race, though Nom seems to be just about going through and going away into the distance at the moment. It's only 4/10 of a second is there's quite a big jockey for position further back. I wonder if there's been an incident there. There's a lot of cars out, actually.
It looks like, judging off the track map, a lot of people stopped in Aqua Raleigh, and that's a massive incident there. Looking at the 42 car of David Clymer, the 108 car is stopped back there. That was a lot of cars. And a lot of people with very heavy damage there. I wonder if there was a major incident going into Aqua Minerale. It looks like Aeronom still leads this race above Wayne Castile there. Looks
Here's
like
what's
this
happened
is
then.
Kenny Meadows coming out into Aqua Minerale. And looks like everything's
Just around the corner,
okay
we
so
can't quite
far.
see it.
It's a bit
It was
further
just-
up. There's smoke.
There's David Blair I'm hearing, so no doubt we'll get the
Oh
instant.
wow! A major
lot of-
pile up. This is
Just a
Jason
lot of-
Gata.
Just a lot of cars here, Alex, I think, trying to pile into the same corner, and then unfortunately it was just one single spin and no one particularly alert to what was going on. It's just cost a little bit of, well, quite a major incident actually, in all honesty. As here it is once again. Here's probably confirmation of what I was just saying. There was a tap further forward in the field and then everyone just piled in. Clymer was trying to get involved. Clymer couldn't quite get involved. He spins, causes a pile up further on, and as I said, no one really quite alert to that, I'm afraid. And to be fair to them, they didn't have a great deal of time to prepare. The gap at the front, 0.2 of a second between Nom and Castile. Castile, all of a sudden, going through Aqua Minerale this time a little bit safer than some people in lap 1. He's really starting to pressurise the race leader.
Thing is, it's a 40-minute race. We're only on minute 3, so we still have a long ways to go, and we know how fast Aeronom is. I mean, even if Wayne Castile gets around him now, there's no guarantee that he will maintain that position throughout the race. If you take a look at the live gap back there on the bottom right. Looks like it's a main 5-car breakaway. Looks like, with Luis Enriquez there being the final car back there, and then it goes to Edgar Sancinelli in 6 as they head through Avatsa. Looks like nothing too major happening. Everybody getting through the second lap quite cleanly there as we take a look at Edgar Sancinelli leading a 4-car pack there. It stretches back down to 9th with Fletcher back there in the 04 car. So everybody looks like they figured it out other than that incident in Aqua Minerale, and still pretty tame race early on aside from that one pileup. And actually it looks like Matt Malone and Wayne Castile going at it up there. I want to see if we can take a look at that. Might have been just something happening on my end. It looks like Wayne Castile way overshot it into Tamburello. He's almost lost it. He saved it. He saved it. Wow. Fantastic driving from Wayne Castile in the 3-car.
But he won't be encouraged by the fact that now Nom is 1.4 seconds down the road from him. He's still making a few mistakes. Here comes Malone down into Tosa. He's going to try and send this one around the outside of the Tosa hairpin. That was never quite going to work. And Wayne Castile is able to merge on just in front of him a little bit. Castile survives for the moment with 1.6 seconds. Now the gap to Nom. So he might just have to revert to pulling off something in the pit stop strategy here, providing he can keep Malone behind him.
And you can see how aggressive Malone was trying to go to the outside around Wayne Castile into Tosa there, which, I mean, like you said, it was pretty much doomed as soon as he went in there. It wasn't going to work, and that really just shows you how aggressive that 83 car is going to probably be throughout this whole race. And Wayne Castile, he now needs to focus forward and try not to focus on what's behind him if he wants to close that gap to Aeronom.
As we continue to look at this one from Wayne Castile, he's just about holding on, and he should have the pace over Malone in the race. As oh dear, who is this? This is Joseph Stout, and he is having some kind of problem down into Aqua Minerale. We've got a replay for what happened. This was into the Villeneuve chicane, I think. He's got up onto the AstroTurf, and it's just basically sent him round and into the barrier, and that is going to be a pretty lengthy pit stop early on in this race. You can just see how the car not having the greatest of body language through Aqua Minerale and down into the Variante Alta. So unfortunately for him, a very early pit stop.
Yeah, and that's really going to hurt his chances there in the Challenger division to try and get a good finish for himself, as we've got a battle for 7th here. It looks like Brian Howard and Fletcher there going into the Tamburello chicane. It looks like nothing gained for Fletcher back there. Is actually now it is here as they head towards the Villeneuve chicane. Looks like Looks like Howard might have overshot himself a bit there, and that allowed Fletcher to catch back up and make a move around the outside of that little kink there as they went towards Villeneuve. A great move, taking advantage of others' mistakes.
And certainly opportunistic move. Saw the opportunity and he went for it. Here we go. Here's another move. This is Jay Baz. He's trying to get ahead of Clark and down into the Villeneuve chicane. He's going to be late on the brakes and he's going to be bold and he's going to get the move done just before the corner even started, really up into Tosa, and he's already got the move nice and secure. You can see the brake disc absolutely glowing, running very frontward brake bias here, and just ahead, the car ahead of him looks a little bit anxious, perhaps a little bit damaged, and maybe that's going to help him.
Yeah, it's Mike Nickham there in the 101 car, and you can see that front and rear end is damaged a bit there, and that goes back to something that I saw. It might have been just on my end from something that I saw. It's the rear end of the front end has damage, and I'm pretty sure I could be wrong on this, but when they were rolling off the grid, there was a lot, it looked like a bit of a pile up there in the back of the field, and they were trying to roll off the grid, and that resulted in a lot of cars getting a bit of damage on both the front and rear ends. You can see 2 cars in front of Mike Nickham have it as well. That's Blair and Lebano, so it looks like that's spread throughout a lot of the cars in the back of the pack, and I wonder what happened there.
We do see Nickham, and someone's off of the track just there at the final corner, and I couldn't quite see who that is. I think it might be Thompson, and he's just about managed to get back onto the track, and it's cost him a little bit of time in a couple of positions. Here's what's happened, and I think he just slightly locked up the front left there. Yes, definitely the front left, and onto the gravel, and that has cost him 2 or 3 positions. It won't be the most damaging thing to his race that could happen, but he'll certainly be a little bit frustrated at himself. And I just want to point out with these cars, we see Edgar Sancinelli trying to hold off the Chasing Pro pack and having a little bit of a time doing that at the moment, as he is the AM leader, and I don't think will put up too much resistance here unless he wants those cars between him and Arliss behind. And the question is, these guys are braking so early. Surely that makes it a little bit easier to make a move, Alex. As Wayne Castile has had a problem.
It looks like he has had a problem. He's back there in 5th now. Not sure what could have happened to him, as there he is there. He heads towards Variante Alta. It looks like we have a replay coming up of that. This is Scotty Banks in the 51 car. This is an Aqua Minerale, and it looks like he just lost it there. He's coming through Piratella, down the hill into Aqua Minerale. There's the Aeronam up there, Matt Malone chasing him, and it looks like he's got on the brakes and clipped the grass just on entry. Such an easy thing to do at this track, and just barely clipped the grass, and that shot the rear end around, and that's dropped Wayne Castile back down into 5th. Which has really hurt his race after starting 2nd. We know how fast he was, and it's just really hurt him, and he has a lot of work to do if he wants to try and get back up there.
There's something happened to Brandon Carl. I'm not too sure what's going on. I know, we're just looking at him here in my ear. I thought
Brandon Carl, it's okay. Brandon Carl, as you can see, if we're pulling up something on the screen for you guys, one of our in-race amateur streamers here, and he is a main sponsor for the AMS and BCXCarl. The division is generously brought to you by one of our own amateur drivers, Brandon Carl, and his Twitch channel, BCXCarl. Go show some support and give him a follow at Twitch at www.twitch.tv/BCXCarl. That's www.twitch.tv/BCXCarl. And very good driver showing his support for the AMS series, and that little Honda Ford up there, if you can see that badge. So great for him to show some support, and hopefully you guys can give him some support back over there on his Twitch channel. That's BCXCarl on Twitch. So go ahead and give him a follow. And as we get back to racing here, as we see Aeronam once again, he leads Matt Malone by 3.5 seconds, and then it's Scott Banks behind him, and looks like Dustin Allis and Edgar Sancinelli were side by side for 8th, and That must have meant that Edgar Sancinelli made a mistake, or Alice made some really good moves, and it looks like he has damage up there, which could have affected the handling of that race car.
Well, it's certainly offering reason as to why he's down in 9th position and second in class rather than 8th. But that means that we've got a bit of a battle going on here for the lead in the AM class. Sancinelli, a very, very talented driver, will be looking to get back past as soon as possible, no doubt. Alice will be holding on to it for dear life here. And it's just ahead. There's a battle going on in the Pro class. And that, they could easily find themselves tripping over each other there. And it could have an effect on the AM battle as well. This is Fletcher and Howard. Fletcher just a little bit ahead at the moment as they head down into Tomborello. He's got a great deal of slipstream, has Howard, and he's going to switch somewhere to try and make a move, but in the end, think about it and stay behind. A little bit of a mistake, however, from Fletcher. Just went a little bit deep into the corner. Howard still trying to hound him and just try and find a way through, force a way through. He's going to force a way through down at the Villeneuve chicane, perhaps, but he's again on the brakes just that little bit earlier.
Yeah, and that just really shows you how heavy these cars are and how early you have to brake here. And as these guys, they really send it sideways into Tosa there. And let's take a moment to mention the classes. So we have 3 different classes here in the SBO Network's American Muscle Series. And the Pro class meant for the top drivers like Aeronam and Matt Malone, all those guys up there doing their very best, the very best drivers in this series. You can post some really quick times. Then you've got the amateur class. I do believe it's the 2nd tier class. Then the Challenger in 3rd. Or excuse me, I got that backwards. The Challenger is the 2nd tier class. The Amateur is the 3rd tier class. Currently, Hodson leads the 2nd tier Challenger class, with Alice leading the 3rd tier Amateur class. And just to divide up the drivers a little bit so it's a bit more fair racing for everybody involved, but it looks like another mistake from Fletcher there is going to lead Howard to be able to try and make a move down towards Ravazza. They're going to go side by side onto the bridge. Down the hill towards Ravazza. We're going to see what happens here. It looks like Howard has his nose in front, but by the time they get to the corner, you can see the 244 car watching in the back. They're still side by side, and it looks like Howard's going to take the position, and Fletcher's going to get the slipstream down the front stretch, though, so I would expect this battle to continue down into Tamburello.
And you wouldn't think that AM was the 3rd class, given that Alice and Sancinelli are right there up with some pro drivers. You can see them in the top of your picture as we see Howard now coming under increasing pressure from Fletcher as they head down into Tamburello. He's going to just about stay behind. Here is the leader in the Challenger class, actually behind the leaders of the AM class, which is where the confusion stems from. But it also goes to show how it's not exactly a scientific measure which class you've been put in. Sometimes you can be a little bit faster than your lower class counterparts, or your higher class counterparts, I should say, as we're seeing evidenced here with Alice and Sancinelli. And in fact, overall, the Challenger class being right and mixed in with the amateurs. Here is Alice and Sancinelli right up on his rear end now, a symptom of the Howard and Fletcher battle. Sancinelli, no sign of a move just yet, however, and something that you expect might be changed during the pit stops whenever we start to see those playing a factor.
Yeah, and we're going to keep an eye on this battle here, as looks like these guys, they have unlimited tire sets, so it doesn't matter as it looks like, I believe Randall said that they're probably going to take right side tires, but talking about the pits, and as we take a look at the onboard of Sancinelli, I want to mention something that's quite unique to a few tracks on iRacing, and that is the scoring system of incidents. And now, incidents can be scored in things like going off track, hitting other cars, hitting walls, and it adds up your incident point total. And if your incident total gets to a certain point, iRacing will give you a penalty. Well, that exists here. Ooh, actually,
Alex, but Alice went off track, and that's going to give Sancinelli the lead of the race. And more importantly, Hodson now is in between the two of them. So Alice is going to have to fight with the Challenger leader to get back close to his own class's leader, which is really going to play into the hands of Sancinelli.
Yeah, that's really going to help him here as we take a look at Scotty Banks chasing Matt Malone up into the Villeneuve chicane here. Oh, you have a bit of a break in the action. Let's once again go back to the incident point. So if these guys get 17 incident points, that's going to lead to a drive-through penalty, which is going to cost them 20 seconds without stopping for tires or fuel. So every time you see a car come off a corner and get onto the rumble strips and go a little bit off the racing asphalt, it's going to give them an incident point. And if they do that 17 times, that's going to give them that's going to give them a drive-through penalty, which could cost them around 20 seconds, which could be very costly, especially if you're somebody like Aero Nom or maybe Hodgson there, who is leading their respective class.
Absolutely, as we see Price coming under a little bit of pressure from Wentz. And this could be a bit of an interesting battle. A little bit of damage on the front of Price's car. And Wentz at the moment not quite able to... I apologise, sorry. Price has got past Wentz now. And here is the replay of that. And it was just a little bit wide from Wentz. And Price said, thank you very much. I'll come on through. And that is a change of position in the amateur class. However, that's not going to change the fact that Wentz is still looking very, very fast here. And will probably try and get through. Wayne Castile is through, and I actually think Howard and Fletcher may have come into the pits, though that could be an issue on my timing screen. I don't think they have just yet. So actually, just completely ignore what I was just saying. I had an issue on my timing screen for a moment, and it looked like they'd come into the pits, but no, they haven't.
As we actually see a bit of damaged cars in the pits there from earlier incidents, but talking about pits, I mean, we're nearing the halfway point in this race, only about a minute and a half away from the halfway point, which is going to be 20 minutes. So you reckon these guys are going to pit here in a few laps time there, because they're going to have to pit at one point in this race for fuel, and they might end up taking tires as well. So especially if you're the leader, Aeronomics, you actually got really sideways out of the Villeneuve chicane. You got to wonder, when are these guys going to start to come into the pits?
Nom looking pretty confident and comfortable in the lead of the race. 4.8 seconds now, and you just have to feel, if it weren't for that slight incident for Castile, that ever so slightly going wide at the start of this race, would it have been such a comprehensive lead at this stage? Here's a battle between Banks and Malone, trying to take the banner of second position, and at the moment it looks like Malone is just holding on to this one, though the question's obviously going to be about slipstream down into Tamburello. He'll have a think about it into the variance at Alta, no doubt, but Banks at the moment looking pretty content to stay behind.
Looks like just staying single file there as they get out of the Variante Alta and head towards Ravazza here. And by the time they complete this lap, we'll have been halfway through this race. So I wonder if this is the lap where we might see some people come into the pits there. It looks like Aero Nom had a bit of lap traffic up there ahead of him. So wonder, ooh, that's a car off track there actually. That's a Challenger car. Not sure who that is. That looks like Scott Brooks in the number 100 car. The Challenger looks like maybe just has damage, wanted to stay off track there, and it looks like just stayed there heading towards the pits there. So probably from an earlier incident he was involved in, but looks like we have some cars further back in the pack that were there, and it looks like Banks has actually tried to make a move on Malone, and he has gotten through down into the Tamburello chicane. That looked like a bit of an outbraking maneuver as we see a replay here. Down into the Tamburello chicane, it looks like Banks just was able to outbrake Malone and get around him before they were through with the first part of the chicane. So great move by him, and that moves Scotty Banks up into second.
Incredible from Scotty Banks, though they have now got Enriquez just behind them, and Luis Enriquez will be rubbing his hands together thinking about a podium here, no doubt. And if they continue to battle Malone and Banks, then Enriquez is going to be right into the fray. Halfway through this race then, 21 minutes gone, which means 19 minutes to go. The most incredible maths I'm aware, as they head down into Acqua Minerale now for the 11th time. And Enriquez just thinking here that perhaps with 4 tenths of a second worth of a gap, that there's a right old opportunity. Here comes Bast, as you can see him trying to get past Lobano, and around the outside at Tozer, going to try and stick it out here is Jay Bast onto the grass ever so slightly. At least he's cooled his tyres down, and now down up into Piratella. They're going to stay side by side, nothing separating these two at the moment. Around the outside goes Jay Bast, not quite able to find the space. He's going to go for the switchback, however, the little bit of a wide moment from Lobano, but in the end it is Lobano who comes out on top. That has to go off the track, so no doubt we'll get an incident point, and the rear of his car not looking the healthiest.
Oh, that incident point, those things can add up on you quickly, as it looks like Bast might think of a move into the Variante Alta. He thought about going for it, backed out before the corner, and that's going to set him a little bit behind as they head toward Ravazza. Still, none of the top running cars have entered the pit, so it looks like it might be a late pit stop, or everybody thinking they might try for an overcut here towards the end of this race. But Jay Bast here, he's third place in the Challenger division. Even if everybody's thinking of an overcut, if you're P3 in the Challenger division, little bit behind the leader for your class, why do you think you might go for an undercut here? But he's still going to try and chase Lobano. They're going to go side by side through Variante Bassa. And it looks like they're going to stay side by side across the line to start lap 12 here for themselves. And it looks like Jay Bass is going to get it quickly. It looks like that damage on the back of Lobano's car is really affecting how fast he is down these straights.
And you would think he just accepts that and just stay behind for a moment here on Jay Bast and just appreciate that they're losing time. He's only got about 3.6 seconds now to Blair. Just behind him is Lobano. Here is a battle for position overall between Hudson and Arliss. Arliss, of course, losing a little bit of touch with Sancinelli in the yellow, just at the top of your picture for a moment there, and he really needs to get past Hodson. This is a matter of urgency now if he's going to be able to attack Sancinelli later on into this race. He's still got plenty of time left, about 15 minutes or so. A little bit of a mistake though, so that's not the way to go about it, Alex.
Yeah, he sent it in there really hard, locked up the brakes, almost made contact with Hodson. That's really going to affect if he's able to catch up to Sancinelli or not, which is now, judging off, adding up those interval times, that's about a 2.5, maybe second gap from Edgar Sancinelli to Dustin Allis, which is really going to affect, not really that race car, but just mentally, it's just when you're back that far, and might not be easy to close that gap, and it really could affect the way he starts to handle that race car. But still, 3 cars under a blanket for third overall and in the pro class. Matt Malone not giving up as Scotty Banks got around him just a few laps ago in that very corner of the Tamburello chicane, and Luis Enrique is ready to pounce on Matt Malone if he makes a mistake as well back there. So 3 cars still racing equally hard for the podium places there, as Edgar Sancinelli has maintained that 4-second gap there. But actually, it looks like the Villeneuve chicane might be where Scotty Banks has a bit of time on Aeronam there. As you can see, that gap closed quite a bit as they went into the Villeneuve chicane and through Tosa.
Malone really just trying to force an issue, and you can see that by how aggressively he's driving at this stage. Enriquez falling back a little bit, 7/10 of a second that gap is now, and Malone just going to have to stick in here and keep hounding away at the lap times. The brake lights on these cars as well, and as we see Mike Thompson the first taker for the pit stop, so perhaps it's with about 15 minutes to go that we're going to start to see a flurry of cars into the pits now. But back to my point, is that a pit stop or a drive-through penalty? I can't quite tell if he did take service there or not, as we switch back to Malone and Banks.
Yeah, it was Mike Thompson there in the 215 car. And while we have a bit of a break in the action, let's take a second to go to another sponsor. And this time, let's do SPO Networks, the title sponsor for the SPO Networks American Muscle Series. And SPO Networks Incorporated is actively exploring potential acquisitions and opportunities in diversified industries, including solid waste, scrap metal recycling, and demolition with special waste remediation. Additionally, SPO maintains the belief that patients and customers have a right to high-quality, economical, and clinically validated cannabis products. Towards this, SPO aims at medical and recreational cannabis and genetic seed operations with the expectation of rapid expansion in the cannabis industry. For more information, please go to https://www.spoi.now.com. Once again, that is https://spoi.now.com. And back towards racing action, this is one of the leading amateur series cars, and that is Dustin Ollis into the pits. He was second, about 2.5 seconds behind Edgar Sancinelli, and it looks like this is where the pit stops are going to come in, as one of the front-running cars has already been the first to do it. And Aeronom still leads this race. He has yet to pit, as well as some of the cars behind him. Looks like Scotty Banks, he has closed that gap by a few tenths of a second there. Matt Malone, they're still trailing him. And Luis Henriquez back there as well. Looks like you can see Malone has been running slightly faster than Banks the past couple of laps there. And looks like Banks, he might... I mean, you have to wonder, when are these guys going to come into the pits? Because they have to do it soon.
Surely they have to do it soon. I don't think they can get to the end on the fuel. So it might be a late pit stop. And if it is a late pit stop, that begs the question. If you're going to pit with 5 laps to go or so, let's say, it's 5 laps is 10 minutes to go. So we're actually around that stage now. Do you think, actually, what's the point in me coming into the pits and changing my tyres when I can just take fuel and it's not going to give me too much of an advantage? But that being said, they do take the single side tyres purely for the reason that they can do it simultaneously to the fueling. So I suppose it might be a no-brainer with the unlimited sets. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and it looks like you can see more cars. Fletcher's into the pits, so is Edgar Sancinelli. That's the second amateur car that's into the pits now, and Fletcher, one of the first front-running pro cars to come into the pits as well. And it looks like Jay Bass is going to take advantage of that, not coming into the pits just yet, and it looks like Fletcher is currently exiting the pits as well as Edgar Sancinelli, so we're going to have to see where Dustin Ollis comes out on this. It looks like can't see him back there just yet. Here he is. He's already through Variante Bassa, and it looks like Sancinelli has already exited the pits and is heading towards Tamburello right in front of him. So looks like you can see Ollis there in the background, but it looks like not much gain, not much loss there on pit road for Dustin Ollis. And actually, real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but it looks like Matt Malone just got around Scotty Banks again. If we can go back up there. Yes, he has. I believe that was through Aqua Minerale, if we can get a replay of that.
This could be a pretty spectacular move, and it wasn't a spectacular move, I'm afraid to say. It was a mistake ahead of him, and Malone just capitalising nice and easily. Now he's got a golden opportunity, and he's just got to think about the pit stops. What do you do? Do you go as long as you can, or do you open yourself up to that undercut? They've got a fair gap behind them, so they will come out into clean air if they pit now, so might be as good of a time as ever. Leader into the pits as well, as is Wayne Castile, I think.
Look like it, I don't think. Oh, yes, he is. Wait, no, he is not. Wayne Castile, after a bit of a mistake earlier, decided to stay out one more lap, and Aeronom pitting confirms that these guys will have to pit to make it to the end of the race here. And Aeronom, looks like this is really what it's all going to come down to. It looks like Matt Malone and Scotty Banks, as well as Luis Henriquez, they have to try and work together now, not try and fight each other, and just try and push each other into the fastest few in-laps as possible to try and make a move to try and catch up to Aeronom once again. And we're just going to have to see what happens here when they come into the pits. They're just going to have to try and be as fast as possible, try and capitalize on the pit stops, and try and at the very least, close the gap to Aeronom.
Well, I'm afraid there's going to be no few in-laps about it. They've kind of had their hand forced here, where if they want to catch up to Nom, they're going to have to pit on this lap, because he is just going to be faster. If he has taken tyres, which we expect them to do because of the simultaneous fueling and tyre sets, which, to be fair, might not be the case with the little bit of fuel they have to take on for 2 or 3 more laps. But if it is the case that he's taken tyres, then they're going to have to be pitting rather soon, because he's just going to be a lot faster. Remember, tyre wear going to a Constantino effect down into the Variante Alto as well. But if they're going to have that exemplified tyre wear with the extreme temperatures of the Italian summertime, albeit running real weather, it is 4 in the morning in Italy, so the temperature might not be too scorching at the moment, but they're going to have to take tyres, otherwise the advantage that NAM has got is just going to be simply too much for them. And we'll see whether they do pit on this occasion. I would expect them to. They're not going to. However, Banks and Enriquez is. So Malone is going to brave it out for another lap on his own.
Yeah, and that's probably, I'm not sure what he's thinking there. I mean, like you said, I would have expected everybody to come into the pits now to try and bank off having fresher tires while Aero NAM still dealing with new tires on his outlap here. So we have to see when these guys exit the pits, as Aero NAM is already through Variante Bassa. And it looks like those guys just exiting the pits now. You can see Aero NAM there in the background, and it looks like he has got back around Scotty Banks and Luis Enriquez before they even got out of the pits. So Aero NAM, he's fastest on track, and currently he's fastest on pit road, as it looks like those guys lost time to him as they went through the pit cycle.
Now the question is, Matt Malone, is he going to be able to pull a blinder here ahead of everyone else? He'll have to be pitting on this occasion. Surely, this lap or next lap, you would have to say that if he pits on the next occasion, there's only going to be 2 laps left, so it would be a little bit pointless. Which means surely he's going to have to pit on this lap. Edgar Sancinelli is just out of the pits. I think I can see it says out on my screen. I'm not too sure what that means. No, he's back going again now, so never mind. False alarm on the live timing screen. Edgar Sancinelli going along nicely. There's confirmation. The soon-to-be leader in AM, as I believe Labano has to pit still. It wouldn't make sense why he's suddenly ahead of Howard and Fletcher as well, so we'll assume that Labano has indeed got to pit, and that would put Edgar Sancinelli back up into what he'll feel is his rightful position. Look at that car. Chuck Labano. That's unbelievable, that rear end.
You could see during that one lap that it was really affecting him on the straights when he was battling with Dustin Ollis one time. And it looks like Matt Malone is into the pits this lap. So now we have to see where Aero NAM ends up and where Matt Malone ends up. There's a bit of a battle going into Tamburello. That's Matthew Gazenda, and it looks like Bork, I want to say there. But there's Matt Malone. He's into the pits. He's pulling into his stall around now. Aero NAM exiting Ravazza. We have to see when Matt Malone gets out of the pits.
Plenty of time here. Plenty of time in hand. He should get through and get through easily. He's going to pit exit now, but he's still halfway down the pit lane only. So NAM, you see him at the top of your picture, is going to fly into the lead of the race. The question is, where are the other two? And this is going to be quite close indeed between Matt Malone, Scotty Banks and Luis Enriquez, and I believe Malone has just about made the overcut work, has he? No, down into turn 1. Banks is going to get back on through. So the extra momentum has just about helped Scotty Banks here, and he is into second position. Now they're trying to get around some traffic here as well. This is absolute carnage towards the end of this race.
Yeah, and Wayne Castile is caught back up to these 3 cars, as you see him back there in the 3 car behind Luis Enriquez. So unless he hasn't pitted yet, Wayne Castile has brought himself back into the fight for at least the podium places in this race, as he looks to the inside of Luis Enriquez there through Tosa. They're still side by side as they head up the hill towards Piratella. So these guys are going to maintain side by side. It looks like Enriquez just surges ahead before Piratella, and looks like Castile not going to make that move happen just yet as they head towards Acqua Minerale.
Heading into Acqua Minerale, still just behind them all is Wayne Castile. And a podium here, albeit unlikely, with 4 minutes to go and just about 2 laps. A podium seems unlikely here, but it will certainly sweeten the blow from earlier on. Is he going to go for a move into the Varianta Alta. He's not. He's going to stay behind rather sensibly, and I think just hope for a slipstream fest down into turn 1. On board with Enriquez, who has got that foreboding Wayne Castile just behind him. 0.2 of a second. He's really going to find himself under pressure out of this final corner and down into Tamburello. This exit is absolutely crucial. 2 laps to go.
Ooh, looks like Castile's gonna try. He's not gonna get there. Ooh, bit of contact there. That looks like Enriquez very abruptly slowed down on the exit of Rabassa through Variante Bassa. They come. Looks like Enriquez still maintaining his nose out front, but Castile still trying there. He's closing the gap there as they head down the main straightaway and towards Tamburello, and looks like Wayne Castile, he's going to get the move done into Tamburello, and now he's got to set his sights towards Matt Malone and Scotty Banks if he wants to put himself back on the podium, but Matt Malone already preoccupied, and it looks like Wayne Castile actually went off track there. That's going to put Enriquez almost back side by side with them into the Villeneuve chicane.
I just caught it actually as he was fully locked up, and again he's onto the grass, and this time he's fully crossed up and into the barrier, and there's a puff of smoke out of the car. I wouldn't be surprised if that is Wayne Castile day, unfortunately, over, and it is, and he was pushing for the podium, and unfortunately he was crossed up through Tamburello, and then heading into Villeneuve he did virtually the same thing again, onto those little pop-up curbs. He just got on 2 wheels heading through Tamburello, and then a similar thing happened, crossed him up and into the barrier with quite extreme force. Here's what happened, just understeered onto the gravel, still tried to keep the throttle in, full opposite lock. He did well to actually hold it for a moment, but then the car just overcorrected on him, and you can see in the background as well Enriquez getting crossed up, but that puff of smoke I believe is the engine blowing up.
It's very unfortunate. That's going to end Wayne Castile's day after a race of highs and lows. Started second, had a run-in with Aero Nam trying to get around him, fell back to 5th and put himself back in contention for a podium, and ultimately ends his day with a mistake in the Villeneuve chicane. But Jesse Hodgson and Jay Bast are now in a battle for the lead of the Challenger class. Second tier series here. It looks like Dustin Ollis is back there as well. And it looks like Ollis might have just gotten around Jay Bast, I think, which is going to put a car in between. And actually, that might have been an error on my timing screen. Actually, Jay Bast is 11 seconds, maybe 12 seconds behind Jesse Hodgson, so apologies on my part for that one. But let's take a moment real quick to talk about another one of our sponsors here for the SBO Network's American Muscle Series, Gunfire Games, who are the developers of the recently released title Remnant from the Ashes, available for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation platforms. So thanks to them for hopping on board with the AMS world and allowing us to come in here and commentate these great races every week. And cutting off here for a replay of Matt Malone into the Villeneuve chicane. Ooh. Oh, wait, no, that was Tamburello.
Yep, and he's just got his blooming good save, isn't it, from Matt Malone?
Wow.
And I'm happy to say that he's still going. He's still in 3rd position. He probably will have to concede 3rd position today, but thankfully he's or concede 2nd position, I should say. But thankfully, on the final lap of the race, he's still pointing in the right direction. On Enriquez doesn't quite get the podium, though. Here is this man, Aero Nom, who is going to come through the Variante Alta for the final time, and surely now he is going to win this race.
Just another fantastic race from Aero Nam. It's just, this guy just seems unstoppable here in these Ford Mustangs. Just incredible driving from him. Just an extremely talented driver. He knows exactly how to get around almost every track we go to in these cars. An amazing drive from him. And it looks like through Ravazza for the final time, no mistakes. And down the front straightaway, through Variante Bassa, Aero Nam is going to win again in the Pro Class here and overall for the American Muscle Series here from Imola. And it looks like Edgar Sancinelli, he had to face adversity there. Scotty Banks and Matt Malone, Luis Henriquez all crossed the line, but Edgar Sancinelli back here. As we take a look at Brian Howard here, he's going to end up rounding out the top 5 for the Pro Class, as well as Clint Fletcher there in the 04 car. And now back to Edgar Sancinelli, who had to face adversity all day for the lead of the amateur class. But he's going to come out of Ravazza, and you can see him swerving in celebration there as he comes across the line to win the day for the amateur class. And back there, just behind him, looks like is actually Brian Nagy. It looks like had a problem with his left front tire there, and Jesse Hodgson across the line to win for the challenger class. He had battles all day, but he ends up getting the best of it. And Jesse Hodgson wins the challenger class. And just what a race from everybody involved.
Entertainment, and it wasn't quite the photo. Oh dear, there is a bit of a photo finish between Bork and Labano as they come to the line, and they were right up close to each other for a moment. And I'm not too sure where they are. Here they are, and they're slow now, but this is through the final corner for the final time, and Labano is actually very slow. I think he's run out of fuel. It's Labano. He's run out of fuel.
Yes.
And I saw him tumbling down the order. He's only going to lose one position, but that position is going to be the podium in class for Labano, and he's just about going to cross the line here, fully clutch in, I imagine, and just about Labano is going to come to the line, but what disappointment.
Extremely unfortunate for Chuck Labano. He had a fantastic race, was contending for the podium in the amateur class, and runs out of fuel through Ravazza. And Brandon Carl crosses the line. There's Thompson as well. Tom went, looks like Stout, Little, Price, and Clymer there. It's like, and that gets every car down to the people who had to finish their race in the pits. Wayne Castile back there as well. Nagy, Schultes, and just wow, what a race from everybody involved. You had the massive pileup in Acqua Minerale on lap 1. You had fantastic saves like what Matt Malone did through to the Tamburello chicane. And at the end of the day, what I'm going to pronounce is the king of the Mustangs, Aeronam, wins once again and pulls it into the pits to celebrate with his crew.
A superb drive, and a superb drive from this man as well, Edgar Sancinelli. And it was well, not unstoppable, but in the end he wasn't stopped, we'll say that. And very, very well done to Edgar as well. He's a star on the MX-5s, isn't he? But a star in Mustangs as well, and he's going to do some donuts here perhaps, or just stop on the straight. I'm not too sure what's going on there with Sancinelli. As well, I think we've got a couple of interviews, and first up we've actually got Aeronam. Hello, Aeronam, and welcome to the stream, and a pretty unstoppable race from yourself, as it looked at the start that perhaps you were going to be pressured by Wayne Castile, but in the end you just pulled away and didn't really look back.
Yeah, it was, they all have a good pace here, so I made sure I'm not making any mistakes, and as soon as Wayne made a mistake, there was a little bit of a gap, and I was managed to hold it and not push it really hard to the end, so...
And, well, it's obviously your first day back, your first race back, and surely you have to think now that you're going to think about getting through the field and getting back into the lead of the championship, or getting into the lead of the championship.
Yeah, I wasn't sure of my pace. I didn't have any practice for months, I think, since the last race. Well, the last 3 weeks ago there was a practice race, but and today I only had 30 minutes practice, so I have to see next races.
And, well, you must feel pretty comfortable in the car. What is it about the Ford Mustang that just gels for you?
It's just the way it handles in the corners and how you have to be so smooth on the throttle, and just to carry to speed all the way to the corners. I think the mid corner is my strongest point.
And well, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck for next week as well.
Yeah, thanks guys.
And next we'll drag in Edgar Sancinelli, as that was the leader overall, Aeronam. Edgar Sancinelli. Edgar, it wasn't easy for you, but in the end, you just about weathered the storm and got on through.
Yeah, it was a bit tough. I was a little worried, having the pro guys behind me, and then I kept an eye on Dustin too. And I did hear Dustin had some issues with his shifter, so I know it's hard to slow the car down, and if you're not in the right gears or can't get them in there, it's really tough to get the car around some of these tight corners.
And, the Mustang gelling for you as well. A bit more competition today, though. Do you think that competition is going to ramp up throughout the season, or do you think you're actually just going to get better as it goes on?
Well, I mean, I've had some help from Aero and some of my other teammates as well, so I've really been enjoying the car, but at the same time, I see the competition coming. It's getting heated up, and, it's not always going to work out the way it has. So I'm just got to put in the time and hope for the best and try to stay in there and try to play it smart for the most part.
And Alex, do you have any questions for Edgar?
I do have one. I want to ask, I know you were talking about how you had to fight with Dustin for that, and just how difficult was it to keep your cool driving that car? I bet I did some testing myself earlier. It was quite a handful for me, so just how difficult was it as you had pressure mounting from other amateur competitors and you had to fight through all that to try and win the race?
Yeah, it's the race goes by pretty quickly, and it's a lot of pressure, and you keep thinking ahead. Am I going to run into traffic? How's the fuel going to go? And then the tires, like I told you guys before, I always feel like I'm going to drive the tires off this thing, and all of a sudden I'm just going to slide or make a mistake. So, yeah, I just feel lucky that I was able to hang on to it today.
Well, that is all I have for you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time here. I will drag you back into the waiting rooms. Thank you for coming in here and talking to us. And, okay. And it looks like we're going to talk to Matt Malone now, who finished third for the pro class. He had an awesome fight with Scotty Banks there and just ended up third at the end of the day after a bit of a mistake there. And by the way, to the Tamburello chicane, that was a fantastic save. So, great job on that, and you end up third at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm really happy with third place, considering it's super hot track, and I don't think I've ever driven the Mustang here at Imola. It's a great combo together, but I was just hoping. I was really surprised by my qualifying, and I was just hoping to kind of hang in there in the top 5, and this whole new strategy with saving. Do you save fuel? Because with the pit stops now, that's new this season. I'm still trying to figure that out. So I was saving fuel for quite a bit, and I'm like, well, hot track. Save a little fuel, save your tires, see what happens at the pit stop. And then that was the highlight of my race, is that I'm coming out of the pit, and then everybody was like right there, and we had a heck of a race there at the end.
And
sorry,
Alex. So Matt, as well, you were sort of running in tandem for the entire race long there with Scotty. And with the nature of these cars, just how difficult is it to make sure that you're consistently matching the braking point of the guy ahead? And was it difficult to make sure you didn't trip over him at any point?
Well, yeah, that's one of the big issues with this car and some other cars in iRacing, is that it's massive. So if you're right behind it, it really does block a lot of the vision. But since I was doing some fuel saving, I'm letting off the throttle before the braking points. But you really got to be careful that initial braking point. Letting off the throttle, making sure you can get into the corner, and because sometimes it's kind of blind there with this massive Ford in front of you. But me and Scotty were kind of switched off there a little bit, and we were kind of riding each other's coattails there, in and out, and it came down to he just had a little bit more speed at the end to get me.
And thank you very much for joining us, Matt, and we'll speak to you hopefully next time out after a race win or something.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Great job.
And that was Matt Malone, third place overall, and third place in the pro class as well. That's all from me. Is Alex?
And looks like we're going to take you through our final race results. Aero Nam, with another dominating performance, ends up winning the day overall and in the pro class. And looks like we're going to take a look at the track now. We're going to see what's going on. And back to the results. Aeronom, again, with another fantastic dominating performance, wins the day overall and in the pro class. Scotty Banks, after a fantastic fight with Matt Malone and Luis Henriquez, ends up second. Matt Malone, with probably one of the greatest saves I've ever seen in road course racing, especially in these Mustangs, finishes third. Luis Henriquez fourth. Brian Howard fifth. Clint Fletcher in sixth. Edgar Sancinelli in seventh. Jesse Hodson in eighth, who wins the Challenger class. And actually, I forgot to mention Edgar Sancinelli. He's the winner of the amateur class there in seventh. The third tier series beats the second tier series there in the standings in terms of winners. And Dustin Aulis finishes ninth overall, second in class. Jay Bast in 10th. Roy Baker in 11th. Mike Nickham in 12th. David Blair in 13th. Matthew Thompson in 14th. Martin Bork in 15th. Matthew Guzenda in 16th. It looks like Roger Clark in 17th there, and in 18th, looks like Chuck Labano there. And going back to 19th, that's Kenny Meadows, Brandon Carl, one of our sponsors here in 20th, Mike Thompson in 21st, Tom Went in 22nd, Joseph Stout in 23rd, Jay Little in 24th, Stefan Price in 25th, Wayne Castile, after an unfortunate end to his day, ends up 26th, David Clymer in 27th, Brian Nagy in 28th, Chris Schultes in 29th, Eric Hardman in 30th, Scott Brooks in 31st, Michael Puchik in 32nd, Mike Taylor in 33rd, and it looks like David Stevenson in 34th, and Jason Gata in 35th rounds out the field. And before we round off the stream, we're going to head to one more sponsor read for the Xtreme Scoring. An Xtreme Scoring League Management software eliminates the need for spreadsheets and manual tracking of your drivers and your driver stats. With the extensive multi-level scoring combinations and automated widgets, you can create a professional display for the drivers and fans of your series. Take your league scoring to a new level by visiting extremescoring.info today. Once again, that is extremescoring.info today. And looks like we have some upcoming streams as well. For those of you who want to look forward to those, looks like running alongside this, we had WSRL, and this Thursday in the Spec 5 World Tour, we kick off Season 11, I believe. I might have that wrong. Season 10, sorry. We kick off Season 10, and this Sunday as well, we start the Dirt Oval Tour for XSLR in the 410 winged dirt sprint cars here at the Bristol Dirt Track. And with that, Tom, Dillon, any final thoughts you want to round off with?
Well, it was a superb race this evening, as per usual, in the Ford Mustang cars, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And a reminder that you can catch us same time next week at what should be an even more exciting race at Mount Panorama in Bathurst.
Yeah, definitely, and just another fantastic race from these guys. They never disappoint. They give you anything you could want in a road course race. But with that, my name is Alex Andersen. I have been joined in the commentary booth by Tom Dillon, with Adam Thompson running cameras in the background here for Race 2 of the SBO Network's American Muscle Series from Imola. Thank you very much, and all of you have a good night.
Allow Xtreme Scoring to do the work for you.